Hi, everyone. Welcome back. And today it's going to be episode two of Cobra. What is Cobra? Basically, it is an application that provides you with a better capability to create, well, essentially applications, and you do it by essentially just creating a visual set of functions and functionalities with relationships to one another, and it will compile all that information and provide you with a logically structured set of prompts. Now, that is a much better way of doing things than just going linearly and just winging it over and over again until you kind of get what you expect, which, again, to reiterate what I've mentioned in the previous episode, essentially what you're going to get into pretty soon is a whole bunch of errors, and that's a given because the problem with uh, the approaches that are often taken are not that structured, even though the NLP does advise that it is structured. The more complex the program, the more disjointed the ability of having a one to many and many to one relationship. So before I dive in and I show you the upgrades, just remember that essentially this is a project in the making. It is it's a model for now. Basically, it's not a 1.0 yet. Um, this is it is a test bed to see how far we can push the limits of this particular application. So essentially, we are prototyping here. And part of prototyping and making, I would say, well, gradual improvements is the stop and go approach. So you want to make the improvement and then you want to stop. You want to do a lot of testing, make sure that it is uh, up to par with your expectations. And then if it is, then you can continue. Always make sure you have a backup file, because if you get too far stretched with your imagination and the complexities that will come, you might get something off balance. And if your script gets too off balance, I would say there may not necessarily be a way to come back unless you've saved a copy of it. Otherwise, um good luck. So let's dive right into it, and I'll show you what we've got, the updates that I've applied, and just to remind you that everything will be on the GitHub page, including this amazing 1.5 iteration. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into it.
All right, so I'm just going to take a little bit of time and I'm going to show you a little bit about the script here. And so it's got a couple of libraries, of course, Decanter. Again, it's the graphical user interface. PSI COPG2, so PsyCop G2 is used for the connecting to the Postgres database. And that's the nice thing that I'm going to show you also is that we have, and yes, it is a database that we've connected with this application. So if you haven't seen my previous episode, we connected the Postgres with Python. That is needed because at some point we're going to need to extract a lot of information, and it's going to have to be ordered in a fashionable way, so to speak, where when we click on compile, we're going to have a logical list of all the prompts that we need in order to create the application that we desire. And it's a great introduction as well to to expose you a little bit as to how you can work with databases. One of my a favorite one is Postgres, of course. You could also use BigQuery, and at some point I do want to implement BigQuery with an application. The other thing is that I'll show you, there is a editor for the database that I use. But first and foremost, let's begin with the program itself. So let me just run it here. As you can see, this is the script. It is actually quite a long one that was created, and it is already by nature quite complex. However, it is still at its infancy when it comes to archi- to uh, to architecture, essentially. Again, we're trying to get this into a mature application, which will be a 1.0. So let's run it. Let's see what we've got. So here's the application. Let me put this in the middle and just expand it a little bit so you have a better perspective. So here's the app. We have the nice Cobra icon, and at the top we have files. So we want to open a project. I've already created a project, so let's open it. And here all we need to do is just double click. Now, by default, I have added this here where it says, are you sure you want to clear all the functions? If you ever do want to clear all the functions, you could do it in one shot. So this will do it. And it's still experimental. Maybe, maybe not. I might leave it or I might get rid of it outright. But for now, I'm going to keep it. We'll say no. So here we see Project Gmaster open successfully. We click OK, and we should see the functions that were saved that were previously saved. And here we go. I'm just going to put other there and function. So here's a couple of functions that I created. One of them, circle. And uh, so I have a couple of text boxes. We have, in this case, the function name. We have list, and I'll show you in just a moment what list is, and we have the order of the list. So list is basically essentially what it entails. It is the drop down list. So most lists are that are drop down are vertically. There are some that are horizontal, but right now we're working with the vertical drop downs. We have descriptions. So again, for testing purposes, we'll just put anything in there. Input. So description will be a description of the function, and inputs will be what is the initial input, which is in this case it is a click, and the action is a click. The output is what is the output of that particular action. Then there's a visual output to really identify the visuals that we want to be in the canvas. And then there is relationships. If we double click on this, we could see that there's the other functions. So remember the one to many and the many to one, we can actually create that as a relationship by choosing some of the other functions, and that will present itself as a visual in the logical mapping. Logical mapping, I'll show you that in a moment. It is a bit premature in its capabilities, but that is something that will evolve with time. Right now, we'll just leave these empty. But as you notice, there is a save option. Now, save to database essentially saves the function to the database. Update, so let's say you open a function and you want to make an update to either or one of these fields, not a problem. So you can go ahead and make uh, uh, a a change to the fields and then it's an update. Now this is a straight out update. So what it does is that it replaces the values in the database of those specific fields in those rows. So, well, basically, uh, in the rows and in the so the way it scans it is column row. And then, of course, you could also delete this from the database. And load, I'll just leave it there for now. Basically, maybe if you click the, well, if you delete it, you delete it. Load, this is experimental for now. I'm just testing a few things. Cancel, of course, is a given. So let's let's close this and let's see the logical mapping. But before we do, I want to show you the list. So this is where you create lists. So add lists. So let's create another list. Let's call this one gear underscore 3. You don't necessarily need to add the underscore, but I prefer to for now. Um, so let's add it. Now adding it, if we want to make a change to it, we would rename and then save. In this case, we just added it. So let's close. And if we click add list, it should be there. So we have gear 3 right there. Now, if I wanted to have function, well, let's see the logical mapping. So here we have that under gear 2, we have all of these functions. So they're under the list gear 2. If I wanted function 4 to have some kind of relationship with function other, I will double click and I could click on other. I will save it. I could, there was a field there where I could add an explanation. And let's just save this to database. Again, we got the nice icon confirming that it was saved. So let's close that. Now, if we look at the logical mapping, we could see that function relates directly to, so function 4, which is a function, relates directly to that other function called other. Now, in my haste, there's one thing that I did not check and that I'm hoping to see happen here, and that is if I change function to gear 3, now update in the database. Now let's close that and let's go back to logical mapping. And here we go. We could see that it has now created another list called gear 3, which is great. And it now compiled function 4 within gear 3. And it also kept the idea that it has a direct relationship with the function called other. So exactly what we wanted to do, we got it here. Let's close that. Now compile does work. Essentially, it will quickly compile and it will include function descriptions. So you have the option here to include function descriptions, analyze relationships between functions, include input output details, generate implementation and suggestions. So you could just generate these prompts and here it's already generated. You can copy to clipboard, or you could save this to a file. So here we have it. We also have instructions. I did not update the instructions, but I will subsequently in the next iteration of this in our next edition. I will have that already. And yep, this is pretty much it. Now let me show you the database. So we have function 4, right? Keep that in mind. And if we look at our database, we have function 4 right there. I'm using dbeaver as the environment where you can connect all kinds of different databases and so forth. I connected the Postgres. So let's create a new function. Just going to add it quickly here. So add function, let's call it function 5 list. We'll have it part of gear 3. As you can see, it automatically identified and understood that this is order 2 in gear 3. What if we chose gear 2? Then it understands that the order is 5. So this is gear 3, and let's just create it. Let's double click. So here we have the function name, gear 3, order 2. Beautiful. Let's add a description. I'm just going to go through this quickly. So again, obviously, you could get as descriptive uh, as you want to get. And obviously, the more descriptive, the better. And here we have inputs. So let's say click gear on gear 5, gear 5. There we go. Output draw gear 5. I don't know what it is with me. I love to click on somehow click on cap locks. Visual output. So here, let's uh, a drawing of gear 5. There we go. And relationship. Let's just put none for now. But of course, if we double click, we could see, we could have the different relationships. So let's save this to database. Function save to the database. We have our confirmation. Let's go to the database. And so we don't have our gear 5 yet, but let's refresh this. And there we go. Our gear 5, our function 5, sorry, function 5 is right there. And we have all the fields and the rows with their data. So there we go. And this is a nice way where we get to compile everything. Here we will just add function 5. We're going to go to file and we're going to click on save project. So everything is nicely compiled and project gmaster has been saved. So we do get our information there. And that's pretty much it. So if we close it and now let's run it again. And we want to go to file, open project, double click, and there we go. Everything ordered nicely and ready to be updated. And this will mature with time where we're going to have not just the compile, but as you probably know, when you have too many tokens, too many prompts at once, if you put it all in one shot and you have like a long runoff sentence or paragraphs, the token you may just run out of tokens. And if you run out of tokens in the NLP, essentially it's just going to stop. So ideally what we want is a breakdown when we compile. So it's going to give us and it's going to split the prompts, and I would say the paragraphs, which are the containers for the prompts, and just split that up in a logical manner and in a way that won't overtax the tokens. And given that we could just feed the NLP and just feed it piecemeal by piecemeal until we were done with the information that was provided via the compiler. So that's pretty much it for this one. Do join me on the next episode. I'm going to have an upgraded one, and if you can, please do subscribe so you could get the latest posts, and I would appreciate if you like. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.